stance phase, swing phase, step length, stride length. We'll talk about this. This slide is the most important one in this PowerPoint presentation. So back in the Stone Ages when I was in school, we didn't have this terminology. We had a different term, these classic gait terms here. Heel strike, foot flat, mid stance, heel off, toe off, all that kind of thing. The Rancho Los Amigos Hospital in LA is kind of the gurus of gait, if you will. They have changed to new gait terms here. You are going to see and need to know both of them, okay? Because you're going to see these on board exams and in charts and when you read articles and things like that. So, let's just take a quick look of it. Stance phase, okay? Where your foot is in contact with the ground, if we're looking from one side, is roughly 60% of the gait cycle, okay? The swing phase, where your foot is in the air, is roughly 40%, right? So here's the terms that you're going to see. Initial contact, we're looking at the right leg here, okay? Initial contact, or heel strike, is the same thing, okay? Foot flat is when you are propelling yourself and your foot is flat, and it is called loading response, okay? As your body accelerates through and gets over that foot, that is now termed mid-stance. Same one for this one, okay? Terminal stance is as we're going forward, okay? And the heel begins to come off. This is what we used to call heel off. They now call terminal stance and pre-swing. So we are getting ready, heels getting ready to come off, and we're getting ready to move this leg forward. At that point, we'll have pre-swing, according to Rancho, or toe off. Or toe is coming off, and we are using, what muscles would you think we are using? Brooke? Gastrocnemius. Initial swing phase, so the leg is being propelled forward. It is in the air, it's not in contact with the ground until we get to heel strike again. We've got a swing phase with different phases here, okay? You'll see within this swing phase that we have an acceleration phase and then a deceleration phase. Which one of these is going to be a concentric contraction? Acceleration phase is going to be responsible for the acceleration phase. Eccentric contractions will be slowing our body down. Have you ever heard somebody say that gait or walking is just controlled falling? Okay? Because we have to be able to slow our body down. If we don't, we go face first, right? But those eccentric controls are what are really hard for a lot of people that have weakness to control. All right, so again, just kind of hitting on these things. 60% of the gait cycle is going to be your stance phase, where you go from heel strike, or first initial contact, through mid-stance, and through propulsion and heel off here. Swing phase occurs when it's not in contact with the ground, 40% of the gait cycle, okay? Now, when we talk about running, skipping, hopping, all these things are not the same. This is strictly for walking, okay? Again, we just went through all of these jokers here. Classic terms, and then the newer terms. Stance phase, toe off is equal to initial swing, and again, this is an acceleration phase. Mid-swing, our leg is catching up, and then we start to decelerate again prior to heel strike, okay? So here comes some definitions that you'll need to know. A step length, okay? Let's everybody up, you can get up and move around a little bit. Just stay in your aisle, however. All right? I want you to start with your feet together. Nah, come on out, come on out. We got too many people. Start with your feet together. Give yourself a little bit of room. And I want you to go what we call a stride length, which is advancing the right and then the left in the back there. So that is one stride is the definition here. The advancement of both feet. So a stride is a step to the right and a step to the left. Okay? That is a stride. Okay? A step length is just one step. Single leg. Okay? Does that make sense? So when you hear the term gait cycle, you got to think it's got to go all the way through. Right? Everybody can sit back down. Step and stride. And these are things that you will measure. You will measure heel strike from the left versus heel strike in the right. For this step length, a stride length would be heel strike on the left and heel strike on the left. Right? We'll talk more about that later. Cadence, everybody heard that term before, is your walking speed. The number of steps taken per minute. Right? Certainly varies greatly between individuals. Some people walk very slow, but may have a longer stride. Okay? Some people walk faster, may have a shorter stride. Then there's the old race walkers. I think of the Chris Paul commercial right now. That's on TV.
It's a great commercial.
It's very funny, makes you laugh every time. So, double support. That is when both feet are in contact with the ground at the same time. It occurs between heel off and toe off of one limb and heel strike and foot flat on the opposite. This is approximately 10% of a normal gait cycle. Okay? If you increase your walking speed, you will have less double support. Does that make sense? Because if we go faster, we're getting closer to running. And the definition of running versus walking is that your foot is not, there's not always contact with the ground. There are times when both feet are in the air, when you are running. Okay? Again, this is kind of an analytical way of looking at this stuff right now. My apologies if that's boring. It is. Single limb support, when only one foot is in contact. Each side has about 40% of this, okay? 2 periods of single support occur. And normal stride. Again, no support, time when neither foot is in contact, does not occur during normal walking, running, hopping, skipping, jumping, okay? That's when you're gonna see these things. So when we start talking about using assistive devices, canes, walkers, all this type of thing, think about what that's doing. That's putting more support during the gait cycle, okay? So if someone is having trouble and they need more support, well then that's why we're gonna use assistive devices. Now, my question to you today, if we have an injured, Levi, stand up back there. Can't get hurt in this class and not become an example. Which leg did you hurt?
Right.
Right leg, okay? Can you walk up here for us? So he's obviously walking relatively well without support. Come over here so I can see a little bit better. Hard for you guys to see, but he's what we call circumducting a little bit. He's kind of bringing his leg around like this a little bit. And he's spending more time on the left than he is on the right, which is very common. So I would term this an antalgic gait pattern with some circumduction. Now, let's say this was really bothering you. what side would you want to put a crutch or a cane on to assist him? What you got?
The left.
On the opposite side. Makes sense, right? Look, if he takes this step with the right, and he doesn't want to put all that weight over there, we got to have something for him to do that. Okay, so that's going to be the crutch, the cane, whatever. So we're going to try to advance that together if we can. Crutch or cane, involved extremity, put the weight here that we don't want, then come through, okay? So if you see somebody, and you will see this all the time in the community, someone with a brace on here, and they've got it on the same side, and they're gonna walk just like this. Like Long John Silver or somebody, okay? Thank you. What are you doing? If you put the assistive device on that same side, you're gonna get this kind of gait pattern. Because you're gonna shift, unshift, shift, unshift. You see it all the time, all the time. And you know they did not get proper rehab. The width of the base of support, if you look at someone's gait, it will average between 2 and 4 inches apart. Okay, that's if you draw a line between the heel strike of each one of these. This is going to be about 2 to 4 inch difference on average. Okay, on average. There are some very good gait videos for you guys to watch. Please go onto YouTube and take a look at those things. There's some links on here. Some of these links don't work anymore. I can't control what's happening on YouTube and so forth, but anyway, if you look through, let me see if I can pull one of them up. It just talks about what muscles are used and when they're used. This is a pretty
Hello,
good one.
let's take a look at
Pretty
muscle
simple.
activity during gait. Let's start at the hip joint. At initial contact and foot flat,
Gluteals are activated concentrically to bring the hip into extension. At mid-stance, the ground reaction force moves posterior to the hip joint, yet the hip continues moving into extension, thus requiring hip flexors to work eccentrically up until the toe-off. At toe-off, the hip moves into flexion, thus requiring concentric activation of hip flexors up until the mid-swing. Starting from the mid-swing, the momentum takes over. The gluteals are working eccentrically, controlling the swing of the moving limb up until the initial contact. Now, let's take a look at the ankle joint. At the initial contact and foot flat, dorsiflexors are working eccentrically to lower the foot to the ground. At foot flat, there is a sudden moment of change of ground reaction force anterior to the axis of rotation of the ankle, thus activating plantar flexors eccentrically to control closed chain dorsiflexion at the ankle joint. At mid-stance to heel off, we notice a considerable change in ankle range of motion, moving into 20 degrees of flexion. Plantar flexors are firing concentrically in order to push the foot off the ground and propel the body forward. Toe off to mid-swing, foot has to return to a neutral position. Thus, dorsiflexors are working concentrically to clear the foot off the ground. And finally, from mid-swing to initial contact, dorsiflexors are working isometrically, clearing the foot off the ground and preparing for the heel strike. Lastly, let's examine muscular activity at the knee joint. At initial contact, hamstrings are working concentrically, conjointly with the hip extensors in order to extend the hip. Additionally, since the knee is moving into flexion right after the initial contact, the ground reaction force rapidly changes its position and moves posterior to the knee joint. thus requiring eccentric knee extensor activation to control the degree of knee flexion and to prevent the knee from buckling. From foot flat to mid-stance, knee moves into extension. Hence, knee extensors are working concentrically. At mid-stance, we notice a brief spike in eccentric hamstring activity, followed by a concentric activation of hamstrings at heel-off. From toe-off to mid-swing, quadriceps are working eccentrically, and the knee is being carried into flexion by a passive mechanism driven by flexion at the hip joint. From mid-swing to initial contact, there is a brief activation of eccentric hamstrings to control the momentum that is carrying the knee into extension. I hope this video was helpful. If it was, give it a like.
Helpful to make you completely frustrated with all this? Perfect.
Hi,
That's
everyone.
exactly my point.
In today's video, I'm going to be talking you through
Don't flip out about that, right? That's the kind of stuff we're gonna learn next semester. I'll just show it to you because I want you to understand that concentric, eccentric relationship that's going on with all the different muscle groups, right? Don't flip out. Don't flip out. Don't even worry about this slide per se, okay, right now. Don't want you to worry about these muscles. We just learned about these muscles. We will apply them next semester. Now, at the foot, when you strike your heel during the gait cycle, you then tend to roll to the outside. Most people tend to roll to the outside and then come back. This is the weight distribution from here, and it goes this way, out through the great toe. Okay, that's why we said we've got to have big toe extension. If you don't have great toe extension, you're not going to be able to have a normal gait cycle. Okay? But this is the normal part. Right? How about our pronators up here? Do you think their force plate readout looks like that? No, they flatten out. So theirs is more medial. Okay? So if you look at their shoe, where their wear pattern is, you're gonna see more wear on the medial side than you would on the normal one. Now who's our big supinator? Who walks on the outside? There's somebody walks on the outside of their foot. Okay, somebody. Anyway, people that will stay on the outside here will have more wear that way. You can usually look at this. If you look at their foot from this angle, look at their heel, you'll see build up or breakdown, okay? But this is what's normal. Everybody's been to the beach and seen people walk on the sand, and you see, basically you see, on a normal foot, you see that, right? Arch never really touches the floor or the sand. Maybe a little bit, but it's not gonna make that indentation. But someone who's flat, looks like Sasquatch walking there. All right. So at the ankle, subtalar joint is where this is going to occur. What is the subtalar joint? Articulation between what and what? Talus and what? Calcaneus. Okay? And we said that there is an amount of play that it can occur there, except in Tiger Woods now. You saw he had a fusion of his subtalar joint last week. He's a mess. But you've got this very awkward angle here where this is going to occur. And then again, this is the supination and pronation that we talked about. It occurs around this joint. It is not pure dorsiflexion. It is not pure plantar flexion or inversion or eversion. It is a combination of these things. Right? Pronators, our group here, flat footers, we call those mobile adapters. See, that's much nicer than calling somebody flat footed, isn't it? Mobile adapters. You have lower arches. You tend to have looser joints. Your foot accommodates to a surface, okay? Your foot flattens. Your arch falls. This occurs in a gait cycle at foot flat and mid stance. You can see that, feel that, right? All right. So these supinators, these people that get on the outside of their foot, much more rigid. Their foot does not give. Which are those people? Pes planus or pes cavus? Those are pes cavus folks, okay? Their foot does not accommodate. They are rigid. They have heightened arches, tighter joints, okay? Who's gonna be more susceptible to that lateral ankle sprain, that inversion sprain that we talked about? Pes cavus, our supinators, okay? So this occurs more at heel strike and push off. When they hit their heel, they go to the outside. You're looking at me. This is the way these people walk. Just look at the right side. I can't do it on both. Okay?
Gonna need to see it on both.
What's that? You need to see it on both? I tend to be flatter, so that's hard for me to do. But again, but these pronators, and that's why you've got different shoes, you've got different orthotics, all this. We will talk a lot about that type of thing. Just understand this whole little mechanic system here right now, okay? So just generality, step length should be equal in both distance and time. Is Levi's the same right now? Mm-mm. We've got an abnormal gait pattern right now. But if you are, quote, normal, it should be equal, okay? Your trunk rotates forward as the limb progresses throughout the swing phase. So if I advance my right leg, my trunk is going to rotate as well, okay? Arm swing is an opposition. So as my right comes forward, my left arm comes forward. We all know that, right? Have you ever seen anybody that walks this way? It looks so odd. I knew a guy that could run, and he was really fast. But he ran with his arm. I can't even do it. It's so odd looking. Really, really odd. Your head should be up, your shoulders should be level, your trunk should be in relative extension. You're gonna see a lot of people, especially your older clientele, they're gonna walk like this. Okay? It's not normal. We don't want that. Get these people up. Get them upright. Gait stalkers, that's what we need. Abnormal gait, you're gonna see all kinds of crazy things. Tons of muscle imbalances and weaknesses. We already talked a little bit about the Trendelenburg gait, right? That's a real big one. You'll see a lot of that. Joint range limitation. If someone has problems with hip and knee flexion, let's say, if they can't come up here, well, what's that gonna look like? Like this, right? You're gonna have to lift everything. Shorten muscle length. All right, have you everybody's seen the little old man who's flexed and has hamstrings about that long, and he walks like this? Because he can't get his leg out, okay? Neurological involvement, that's all across the board. All across the board. Balance impairment, you'll see all kinds of things. Ataxic gaits with people who have Parkinson's and things like that. Pain, that's probably more what you're dealing with right now, right? Your leg hurts, you don't want to put all the weight over there. That's called an antalgic gait pattern, okay? Leg length discrepancy, that's really hard. When you've got somebody who has a genuine leg length discrepancy, they're gonna have to build up the shoe, or they're gonna have to add something to try to equal things out. Otherwise, they're gonna have this kind of motion here, okay? Again, we'll watch all of this stuff later this week. We're just trying to expose you to it. We want as many exposures to this as we can, okay? Here's our pes planus, flat footers. This is what normal people look like at the beach. This is what our, what do we call you? Adapters, mobile adapters look like, exactly, okay? Pes planus, look here, leads to, this is what you guys have to look forward to. Elongated tibialis posterior, flexor digitorum longus and flexor hallucis longus. Can you see that? Can you feel that at times?
So once your arch drops,
It's pretty hard to get it back. There are people that will tell you that they can strengthen certain muscles and so forth to get that back. This is connective tissue, however, once it's stretched out, because you think about it, we walk so much, we're on our feet so much, it's pretty hard to get it back. Now, can we give them orthotics? Can we give them devices that make things better? Absolutely, and we should. And that's the stuff that you guys are gonna have to be able to apply.
I just got some inserts
Yeah.
for issues, and I took the old ones out,
Mhm.
and the inside was like so thin.
Just
where I couldn't
mashed
want it out.
down to nothing, yes. Oh boy. So, elongated plantar fascia. Because that arch has gotten flat, effectively the foot gets almost longer, if you think about it. Okay? So that's gonna lead to stretched out plantar fascia and sometimes fasciitis. Fallen arch and navicular bone on the floor, we talked about that when we were looking at their feet last week. Very susceptible to posterior tib dysfunction, tenosynovitis, all the tendinitises, all that stuff, plantar fasciitis. Neuroma, we talked about Morton's neuroma between the third and fourth toes, happens a great deal. Metatarsalgia, which is just pain in the ball of your foot, because again, more pressure in that area. Achilles tendonitis, that's due to the relative, and you can't see it from this angle, due to the relative calcaneal, which way? Is my right one, if I'm flat, it's going out, so that's gonna be calcaneal abduction, okay? And that's why it affects the Achilles tendon, okay? You got an abnormal pull there. These are people that will also develop bone spurs because of those stresses. Wolff's Law, we stress bone, what does bone do? It grows, it comes back, okay? So I've seen lots of bone spurs at calcaneus, all kinds of places. But that's one that you'll see a good bit. Patellofemoral pain, oh, how can that be? Because of the flatness of the foot, we now get them into more of a valgus orientation at the knee, okay? So these are the more knock-knee people. When you're knock-kneed, you're putting more stress medially. We can see that, right? Hips are out this way and we're then here, okay? That's right, that's right. So therefore, that leads to more osteoarthritis at the medial joint line. So that's the whole, if you think about it, that is the whole chain of events that happens just because they picked their wrong parents.
Literally, it's my dad's fault. My mom
It's your
has
dad's
allergies.
fault. Yeah,
It's my dad. I blame him.
there you go. Genetics plays a huge role in all this, right? Some of this stuff you cannot change. Now, we didn't have many of y'all in here, these Pez Cavus people, but look what this is going to talk to. And high instep, supinated foot. We talked about that being on the outside of their foot. Susceptible to plantar fasciitis. How can that be? How can one have plantar fasciitis and the other one have plantar fasciitis? It's because it's an imbalance the other direction as well. So we've got a shortening of the plantar fascia. Has anybody had plantar fasciitis before? Miserable, miserable. So what happens when you sleep overnight and you're not in a weight-bearing position, your arch tends to get a little taller, right? Make sense? Well, what happens when you have plantar fasciitis and your foot hits the ground the first time in the morning? That is some miserable stuff, people. It's just like somebody's putting a nail right through your heel. No fun. Metatarsalgia, again, because of imbalance. Achilles tendonitis, because it's going the other way. Now we've got that calcaneus that is not abducted, it's now adducted. So again, malalignment there. They tend to have more ankle arthritis because of the rigidity and the lack of ability to, they're more rigid, less accommodating, right? Less adaptive. and they get patellofemoral pain too because of these. These are, what are they gonna look like? These are the bow-legged people. So they're gonna have a tendency to be more lateral knee pain, okay? There are more of the flat foot than there is the pes cavus, that's more common. Here is somebody who is over-supinated. Look, it looks like he's turned out, but that's him standing, okay? This is a normal, evenly weighted, distributed foot. Excessive pronation. Again, look for that navicular. Look how close that is to the floor. From a posterior view, this is what you're gonna see with the supinated person and the pes cavus. A normal arch, everything lines up nice and pretty. And then we've got that low arch. Here we go. Over pronation. It's gonna be genu valgum and calcaneal valgum right here. Okay?
Okay, question.
Yes.
So since there is like patellofemoral like issues that come with this, do you incorporate that into your treatment program as well? Like would you like at one point focus on it to help?
Well, one thing let me answer that backward. If I've got somebody with patellofemoral problems, I'm always gonna look at their feet. Always. Because it impacts it so often. Okay? You know, we talked about Q angles and all that kind of thing. But it's coming from the floor more times than it's coming from here. Okay? Did that kind of answer it backward? Yeah. Yeah, you're gonna look at that. You're gonna look at that. And you're gonna have PTs that are in a hurry and they'll do a knee eval or something and they'll miss this. Okay? I know I was terrible at doing this when I first got out. Just because I didn't know. So we need you guys to be the eyes and ears too, because you're gonna see them. You may see them, they may see them for the eval and that's it, and discharge. You guys are gonna be in the middle of this, right? You got to be able to make these adjustments here. That's just kind of showing you in the gait pattern what this over-supinated is gonna look like. And then the over-pronation, again, what you wanna look for here is wear the shoe. Have you noticed how your shoes wear more medially? Yeah. Again, think of the pronators, stress on the arch, the tarsal tunnel, and again, medial knee as we go up the chain. Over-supinators are gonna have more problem with that fifth metatarsal and rolling out on their ankle. They'll have more inversion sprains. Here's what the wear and tears look like. This is the walking on the beach. And this is a continuum here. This is what you want to see. Heel strike on the outside, move forward, even with distribution across the metatarsal heads here. So when we talk about orthotics, anybody in here have orthotics? Anybody should have orthotics? So if we see someone in this, you're gonna what they call motion control, which is tends to be a very rigid orthotic. So again, we've got a accommodating foot, very soft foot that just flattens out. We want rigid orthotics to hold them in place, okay? Conversely, if you get somebody with that's a supinator in this pes cavus orientation, their orthotics are going to be soft and cushioning because their foot is so rigid, okay? We want balance there. Okay?
These are like
Hard,
And they
yes.
push up,
Will
and it's
not
like-
let you.
It's making my arch cramp.
Exactly, especially when you're not used to them. That's what I'll tell people when I first put them in something like that. Hey, you're gonna wear these 2 hours at a time to start with. Cause it's gonna really make you sore. What ends up happening is if they put them in all day, they hurt so bad afterward, they throw them in the closet and don't wear them
That's
again.
what I did. I had to wear them as a kid.
See?
I didn't wear them again after that.
And this kind of same thing goes with just shoes in general too. You can go to the shoe store and say, hey, I'm a pronator. And a good shoe person is gonna put you in a motion control. Should be able to take their shoe. I think this is a motion control shoe. Because I tend to be a little bit flat. If you can take a person with flat feet and you can see how my arch does not bend. It's relatively rigid, okay? So for somebody like, I'm gonna put me in your group here. We want rigidity there. Whereas someone who has that more rigid foot, they can handle that sucker that folds up like a flip-flop, like nothing, okay?
Is that what? Okay, that makes a lot more sense.
Does that make sense? How you
Yeah,
want
'cause
balance?
I couldn't wear shoes that had high arches and I couldn't wear flip-flops that would hurt my feet.
Flip-flops will hurt your feet, exactly.
When I
Like when you walk barefoot for a long period of time, you hurt, do you
I
not?
go for too long.
Yep. Yep, because your foot just flattens out, bottoms out. Okay. All right. So, these first 24 slides, if you know this stuff, this is what will be on the final in terms of gait, okay? We will show you some additional videos and stuff. Actually, I'll say that, you need to know this whole presentation, because there's some stuff on there about some like Parkinsonian gait and things like that. Majority comes from the beginning, but there's a couple here. No, the whole thing. Videos too.
How much about the concentric and eccentric, like that whole cycle?
0.
Okay, good.
0. Not next semester though. We'll get that in. Cool. So there were six gait questions. At least 4 of them will come from what we've already just talked about there. Okay? The definitions. There's a couple on there about like ataxic or Parkinsonian gait or something like that. They're not hard, they're common sense stuff. All right. So tomorrow we will view some of these videos and then we'll start talking on Wednesday. What's the scheduling?
Tomorrow we got a final in the morning. You'll be here in the afternoon.
I will be here in the part of the afternoon because I gotta go. Yeah, just don't go to that.
You director?
Yeah. I wasn't supposed to go. They won't know. Well, I'll be here in the afternoon, at least part of it.
They're doing
What?
Gait again tomorrow afternoon.
We'll do a little bit of, we're gonna watch some of these videos that are abnormal. Those are kind of fun. And then we got a lab practical. Oh boy. How much fun.
So,
We will do the soap note on Thursday.
What's up?
So we got one more soap note. Yes, sir.
Is the 222 lab practicals are going to be 25 stations again?
25 stations,
25.
3 questions each, 2.5 minutes per station, 2.5 minutes per station.
Is there a
We're adding a
palpation
little bit.
session?
Is there
Yes,
a
sir.
palpation station?
What's that?
Palpation station?
I haven't quite decided.
so
As if it's not.
Wednesday, we're not gonna be able to come in here before, are we? Or will we?
It's just in the afternoon.
Cause that, yeah, it's in the afternoon, so.
No, cause I'll probably need to set up in the morning. I'll be in my office setting up, or in my
Right.
area setting up. Cause you'll
If-
do lecture in the morning.
Why don't we do this? Why don't we do the practical at like 10?
Okay.
And then I can do my lecture on functional outcomes and stuff afternoon.
Okay. So that means tomorrow afternoon, it's open lab to get in here around 3 o'clock. You'll have to get out so I can take all the stuff down to start.
I could be here at 8:30 to help you with all kinds of setup on Wednesday.
That's fine. I'll just come in early. I'll come in early for you guys.
Early for you guys.
So you have tomorrow afternoon all day to be in here looking at everything, but you can't come in early on Wednesday.
So we're gonna
So we're doing
It's
Gait
okay.
on, so we're doing Gait on Wednesday?
Afternoon.
We don't know.
Yeah, I like
We don't know what it is.
Just showing up.
Yeah, we're just here.
So we're just finishing Gait on Wednesday?
Whatever you said.